What's up, guys? It is me, Juliet, your Scorpion goddess, and I'm going to be talking about in this video Mercury retrograde. So if this is something you want to learn about and hear about, stay tuned. So this is going to be the first Mercury retrograde of 2022. While Mercury's in Gatorade, messing things up for everybody, it's going to be starting January 14th and ending February 3rd, 2022. And it's going to be starting out in Aquarius. And then it's going to set and shift into Capricorn. Because in astrology, we like to say that when Mercury is in retrograde, it's moving backwards. It's not technically actually physically moving backwards, but it's going to be going from Aquarius, and then it's going to be going back a sign into Capricorn, and we're going to end at 24 degrees Capricorn once it becomes direct. Now, when planets go retrograde, we always have a pre-shadow and a post-shadow period that lasts a couple of weeks, depending on the size of the planet. And because Mercury is so close to us, and, well, it is the closest planet to Earth, and it moves quick. So people hear more about Mercury retrograde than any other planet. You're not really going to hear much about Pluto retrograde or Saturn retrograde, depending on how much of astrology knowledge that you have. But I assure you, most of the world at this point has heard of Mercury retrograde. And that's because it comes in quick and it hits hard and then it leaves. And it happens about 3 to 4 times a year. So it happens often enough to us. So this is going to be starting out in Aquarius, and with Mercury, it does rule our thoughts, our ideas, how we communicate, short travels, and because it's in technology, and so because it's in Aquarius, which also is a very tech-savvy sign, you're going to want to double, triple check everything that you have uploaded in your media and your internet. You're going to want to really service and check your cars before, even during Mercury retrograde. This is not the time to start new projects when any planet, well, not any planet, but when Mercury goes into retrograde, it's not the time to really start any new projects, because when planets go retrograde, it's a time to go internally and figure out what things haven't worked and redo and revise a lot of stuff, so then when it comes direct, then you can take on that action and become bigger and better than what you had already before. You also may notice things from the past may pop up. This is because, again, it's going backwards, so you're going to be going over a lot of stuff from the past. People from the past may pop up, and while this is happening, Venus, part of the time, for about a week and a half, Venus will become direct on January 29th. So from the 14th to the 29th of January, we're going to have Mercury and Venus both retrograde. And this combo duo can kind of really heighten that your ex from the past popping up and noticing dynamics of your relationships, maybe taking a few steps backwards. If not, you may have noticed that people around you are being affected by this more, and they're coming to you, and you kind of being like, how can I really be there for this person? Do I keep doing what I used to do, or do I be supportive in a different way? This is what Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde combo can kind of do for us. So one thing that stood out to me with this Mercury going retrograde is the fact that it's starting out 10 degrees in Aquarius, and the number 10 in numerology is the number of a completion, an ending of a cycle, and even ready to start and begin something new. So because you have the 1 bringing something new, and 0, which is a completion. So with this happening at 10 degrees, this is a time where, all right, we've completed something. Let's go within and figure out, how has my communication style been? What types of relationships, of people, contracts, work, all of that kind of stuff. My community is going to be a big thing in the beginning of Mercury retrograde, just because, again, Aquarius, it's going to be in that sign. Aquarius is it rules a lot of technology and communities and humanitarian ideals. So with it going retrograde, these are things that we may notice, like may be a little haywire, moving backwards, not really making sense. There may be in your community areas or your neighborhoods or small groups of colleagues that you have, you may notice that there may be some tension or friction, miscommunications happening more in those areas of your life. Again, that's just because Mercury will be in the sign of Aquarius, so that stuff can kind of happen. But once it moves into Capricorn, we will start to notice that things with how we kind of go with long-term plans, because Capricorn is a planner. They think of what can I do in the future. They are really focused on their career and business mindset, money, the relationship you have with money. So once it transgresses into Capricorn out of Aquarius during the retrograde season, then see, tripping up on my words. That'll happen a lot too during Mercury retrograde. But anyways, so you may notice that stuff around that area of like your work or colleagues and whatever else, or how you've been doing your business, things might get a little screwy in those areas too. And that's just because Mercury retrograde is saying, hey, this is something you haven't really paid attention to. Do you see now what I'm trying to teach you? Because Mercury retrograde is about teaching lessons of things that we haven't really quite sunken in yet to really understand we can do better, basically, is why we may see repetitive cycles happening again of being like, oh my God, I gotta deal with this crap again, or this person's popping up again, because there's a lesson in there that you can relearn, or something else in there that you haven't quite grasped yet, and you have to go dig deep within the mind and figure out, how can I eventually put this out into the world, or use this to my advantage and put action towards it once it becomes direct again. So whenever we have retrogrades, I was talking about this in the beginning, I didn't really get into it though. We always have a pre-shadow and a post-shadow period that can last about 2 to 3 weeks before and after. So with Mercury retrograde, you may have noticed before seeing this video, before January 14th that happened, you may have noticed that you started having more technology issues. Your phone started acting funny. You started having slow internet, and people not really understanding you and getting into maybe more arguments with people. Maybe you had a fender bender, or, your dashboard on your car lit up like a Christmas tree, or whatever. That's all Mercury retrograde crap. And sometimes people may feel the energy of Mercury retrograde a lot stronger and be more in it once the pre-shadow happens versus when the retrograde is actually happening. And that can be because we're kind of like leading up to something. So when you're leading up to something, you're preparing yourself. You're like, all right, I feel it now. And then once it happens, you're like, oh, this is it? This is easy. You know what I mean? So for some people, that's how they can deal with the retrograde season. They notice it more during the pre-shadow. And then once it happens, for those like 3 to 4 weeks, for while it's in that retrograde, it may not be that big of a deal. And then we have the post-shadow period. So what I do recommend is, when it comes to contracts or professional deals where you're going to lock yourself in something where it has to do with some kind of legal whatever, it's not the best time to sign off on something, because the communications that may be written down in this contract, you're skipping over something. You're not reading between the lines. You're not seeing every single detail that's in there, and then it's going to bite you in the ass after. So it's not the best time to go over something. However, if there was something that you had planned on doing for a year or months ahead of time, and then you get this contract now and it's Mercury retrograde, and then you're like, I heard Juliet say not to sign anything. If you had already been planning on this for a long time period before, it's okay, but you want to make sure that you triple check everything in that contract. And even, if you have the luxury of having a lawyer to go over it with you, or someone who knows contract stuff, I don't know what that's called, but somebody who knows what they're talking about and doing, then yeah, you can still go ahead and sign it. Just be aware that there could be delays with this process. For example, if you're moving and you're ready to sign over the lease or the house ownership or whatever during this time, there could be a delay where you don't get to move into this home on the date that had already been planned. There could also be something like there's a leak that you didn't even know about, and now you got to deal with this, and whatever. There could be things like that. Even with the post shadow, I recommend not jumping into something new where it's something you'll be locked in for this time frame, because you may be excited about it, right? Because you heard about it during the retrograde, and you're like, oh, I'll wait till after February 4th and get into this thing then. And then when you're doing it, you might be like, I really don't want to commit to this right now. This isn't actually for me. But you're locked into something that you're not actually enjoying. So it's best to really make sure that you kind of wait, unless this is something you had planned out ahead of time before this. Just, double, triple check everything. But yeah, that's what Mercury retrograde kind of does. It kind of screws up the communication, haywires a lot of stuff for us. Another thing that is kind of fun to talk about is the fact that we're starting this out in 10 degrees, and 10 degrees would be associated with Capricorn, because Capricorn is the 10th sign. Now, even though it's going to be in Aquarius, we could have these Capricorn-like themes of having more structure, government things. So we could start to see maybe there's some shakeups or miscommunications coming from the government. Not like that hasn't happened a bunch of times recently, but anyways, we could see stuff. Well, because it's going to be Aquarius too, we could notice some screw ups with agriculture. There could be a lot of slowdowns with like deliveries from trucks and stuff like that. Even though this has been happening, it may just get more heightened during these next few weeks more than it has been, because Aquarius, like I said, it rules like agriculture and stuff like that. But back into the 10 degree thing, and then when we're ending in 24 degrees on the last day of the Mercury retrograde, 24 degrees is Pisces, the Pisces. So because we have 12 signs, and when you do it 1 degree Aries, 2 degrees Taurus, you go around 12, and then you go around, you get 24, that's Pisces. Pisces is very imaginative. So once that ends, you may notice that you have a lot more dreams and goals that you would like to reach, stuff that is kind of like up in your head and you're fantasizing about. So that could be something that may happen the last day of Mercury retrograde. For some of you guys, you may be more artistic, remembering your dream the night before and having some kind of strong premonition that came from that as well, that you can use going towards the end of Mercury retrograde. Those are just some like little fun things that I was kind of like reading into. Another thing is, because it's ending in 24 degrees, when you put 2 and 4 together, it's a 6, and this year is a 6 year, and because 2022, 222, 6, and 24 degrees goes into 6 also, and we're starting out that this is the first Mercury retrograde ending in a 6. 6 is about balance. It's about equal give and take. When you look at tarot, when you're looking at a lot of the cards ruled by 6, for example, like 6 of Cups, it has to do with equal give and take. Who can you give more charity to? So that could be something on your mind. And then tying back into Pisces, Pisces is a very giving kind of being as well. So those are just some fun things. It's not really astrology related, but that's just some fun stuff that I kind of want to throw out there that you guys may, kind of notice. But yeah, anyways, with this Mercury retrograde, Mercury does rule the mind, like I did say, but there's also the nerve system. So you could notice that you're getting more backtracked in thinking about past things, where that's going to be stressing you out and giving you more, like, your nervous system kind of getting shaken up, more anxiety. I was getting some messages coming in about there may be a lot more releasing, and this could go into with like maybe having some IBS issues, or like nervous issues where you're going to the bathroom a lot more because you're needing to release a lot of crap and you're being so stuck in your mind. And try to come back into focusing on what is actually happening right now, because time is such a complicated concept. There is no such thing as a past or the future in a way, because the past only lives in your mind and the future only lives in your mind. And with Mercury ruling that, you need to not stress and fret over that. With it being in retrograde, it's going to kind of, you know, screw things up, so you could get stuck in this place because of that. So it's good to try and come back to your senses and what can I physically see, sense, feel in this present moment right now, because this is all that really does exist, and to really capture and take that on to the best of your advantage and do what you can with that. So this was my Mercury retrograde video. If you guys like this, please comment down below. Share this with somebody if you thought of someone who was like, you know, might benefit from this or would be interested. Please subscribe if you guys have not yet. And I will catch you guys next time.